the July 18th meeting of City Council. Will the clerk please call roll?
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder O'Connor. Here. Alder Kitzler.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Council President Spate.
Here.
Alder Bussey and Mayor Miller are excused.
We'll now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll now ask for a motion for approval of the minutes from the July 5th meeting.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any deletions, changes, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The minutes are unanimously approved. Now moving on to Section D, appearances. I believe we have 3 people who have turned in appearance forms tonight, and seeing only 3, I suspect they're all in. So first we have Doug DeRosa from 5404 Gordon Avenue, who would like to speak and register against the proposed parking changes near the high school. Mr. DeRosa, if you'd like to please go to the podium, and we'll get you on
In the Public Works meeting.
live TV.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I did have the opportunity to attend the Public Works meeting, and I certainly appreciate that they addressed the concerns that were brought to them, which is Wallace Avenue being parked up by the high schoolers, that they can't collect brush and whatnot, and certainly support my neighbors on Wallace Avenue to receive some relief. But I guess what I find somewhat ironic is the returning of parking to streets that haven't had it in nearly 30 years. Dan Stephanie was able to provide just one evidence that in 1994 they went to the 2-hour parking on Gordon Avenue on one side and on Lofty, which is to say there was no parking prior to that. This, of course, being at a time when there was about 1,200 people in Cottage Grove, and parking was already an issue on Gordon Avenue and Lofty Avenue. And I believe that when they put those restrictions in place, the thought was that that was going to prevent high school parking in the neighborhood. Of course, as the years went on, Cottage Grove grew dramatically, which I'm going to assume where most of the cars are coming from. And I think the original authors probably did not anticipate that kids would start parking out as far as they are. And I don't see how returning parking to Gordon and Lofty is going to help the neighborhood in a large way. I'm concerned mostly about safety. I mean, if it's just the idea of lining up cars, that's one thing, but I don't know how much you've been able to witness what rush hour at high school park time is. I have a grade school kid, and I've had the opportunity to stand at Lofty and Gordon, and it's quite a sight. And I'm just trying to figure out how the city has not been able to address, and I guess I don't know, the difference if it's the city or the school district, in that, like I say, you're bound with Cottage Grove. To anticipate the parking, I mean, it was inevitably going to grow, and what the city could do about it. It seems like returning it to the neighborhood is not really in anybody's best interest. It's not good parking for the kids. They have to cross Monona Drive. They're walking in streets with no sidewalks. And so I would urge not to expand the parking, but to further restrict it, as I feel that was really the intent of the parking restrictions in the first place. And as I said at the Public Works meeting, it certainly is in keeping with the university initiative that the city just spent $50,000 to investigate in terms of coming up with alternate means of transportation to help enhance the city. As I understand it, there's no obligation to drive to high school. There is bus service, right? And I would like the city, instead of to expanding parking, urge kids to take the bus. Monona kids can ride their bikes. This is where the city is heading, and I would like to see us go in that direction. because I feel if you reopen to parking, it's just going to be a continually growing issue until people on the streets that didn't have parking will be like the residents in Wallace right now and come to the board and say, hey, we need relief in some way. The other aspect of the proposal that I'm concerned about is it seemed like the only signs that are going to change is the times. Wallace Avenue is having issues with encroachment on driveways, drive line or sight lines at corners, and I'm just wondering, is there any thought of, if you do go ahead with this, that you're going to put no parking here at a corner, paint the curb so at least there's some indication as to where kids are going to park? I'm pretty much right on the corner of Lofty and Gordon, and I'm pretty certain that it's going to be ground central, ground zero for high school parking. And so I am quite concerned with the 2 school-age kids, what the complexion of the neighborhood is going to look like in the future. So that's pretty much my concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. DeRosa? All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Christy Schilling from 4502 Gordon Avenue, who would like to speak against parking changes.
Evening. Hi, thanks for having us here and listening to our concerns. I live near the corner of Lofty and Gordon, so I'm on the north end of Gordon. I back up to commercial on the east side of my property, like Rossi's Pizza, for instance. And my block continuously sees overflow parking from Monona Evangelical and the commercial properties bordering to the east. I think maybe it hasn't been considered that heavily that our side of the block is very much an anomaly with the other areas because we back up to commercial and we're the only piece that does. The rest are neighborhoods, and I know it's a problem for everyone. But my concern is I'm just hoping that the city can take a little more time to possibly brainstorm some other alternatives and more sustainable options for the parking situation. The commercial area that abuts our properties, actually all 3 of us here, I know that's a redevelopment zone. And so one concern I have, so what if in a few years that area is redeveloped and the overflow parking doesn't exist at all for the businesses that want to go in there because it's all taken up by the high school students? I think the developer we could potentially be back here in a few years saying, okay, we need to figure out the parking again, because the businesses aren't going to want to come in here because there's no, options for parking. The parking on the on Monona Drive is very limited there. Let's see. I was wondering too if the school district, I work a lot with the school district, and I know they're continuously doing long-term studies and feasibility studies, and I'm guessing they must have considered the parking at some point when that was being built, and I'd be curious to see what the district's plan was to deal with parking, because they must have foreseen that it was going to grow and it was going to become a bigger issue. I'm just curious to see if the district has been talked with about that, what their long-term plan was. Maybe in talking with the district, consider asking them to do incentives for the Monona Grove staff to either carpool or maybe something, these are just out-of-the-box ideas, discounted rates for the Monona Lift or incentives for carpooling or biking, or possibly even considering a section of our block being maintained at the 2-hour parking for the business overflow. I think that would be a pretty beneficial thing for the businesses. I know in driving here tonight, the other end, kind of by Snicks, that entire area was completely full of parking tonight. So right now, there's no school in season. It's all commercial overflow, and that happens on our block already. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. Last, we have Joe Cleansing from 4512 Gordon Avenue, who would like to speak against the parking changes.
Again, I'd like to thank the committee for hearing our our concerns in regards to the parking and the overflow parking. I hear the plight of the neighbors on the road to the south. It is extremely packed there, and I drive through there as well. Some of the concerns I have and the fears I have right now is currently there is no enforcement of the 2-hour parking unless I call or the neighbor calls. I saw it all this fall or all this spring, and only once did I see the police come out and ticket, and I don't feel that's what I want to do every day is be on the phone calling the police department. I'm sure they have better things that they would rather be doing. So currently the kids don't obey the current 2-hour parking as it states. They're there for most of the day, leave at lunch hour, come back in the afternoon. So I'm there a lot of times in the afternoon and in the morning because I work different hours, late, early, and I see a lot of activity. And when cars are a little closer to the school, the kids that are using those parking stalls are also engaged in some activities that might not be legal. And I've seen that very often sitting on my front porch. So that's another concern. Some of the uses along with the trash that's left. A lot of times they eat lunch out there in their cars and throw stuff outside as well. So I'm sure the neighbors down one street to the south might be seeing some of that going on right now. I also have thought that if we could think outside the box a little bit and give teachers, students incentives. I know there's companies around Madison that have incentives for their employees to bike, carpool, and they give bonuses and things along those lines. I know the budgets are stretched, but I also see that, I don't know what's going on with the tennis court area and the house in front of that, and I see the area adjacent to Clinky's behind the school that I never see a lot of use. So I don't know where the school district is and maybe providing more parking around their site for their students as well. So and I don't know if there's an opportunity to co-op with the church at all, with the school to co-op with the church to use some of their parking during the school hours as well. So, but basically my concerns or one of my biggest concerns is the ability to get the kids to follow the rules that are currently in place, let alone we go every other side of the street, okay? And it is a busy street, and we do have overflow parking, and right now in Spring Haven, which I'm one house away from that corner, Spring Haven and Gordon, we always have sightline problems. So if we were going to go to this plan, we would definitely need all the corners painted to keep cars away, because currently there's huge sightline issues going on right now. Spring Haven they can park on, and they do. So, and they do block people's driveways as well on that street. So, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Cleansing? All right, hearing none, thank you very much. We will be discussing this matter tonight, so I encourage you all to stay. You won't be able to participate, but please do listen. That concludes the public hearing, and we'll move on to item F, consent agenda. I will ask if there is a motion for approval of the new applications for 2016-2017 operators licenses for Deborah R. Welsh at Speedway Royal Avenue. Also, item 2, approval of renewal applications for 2016-2017 operator licenses for Michelle L. Kern at Eastside Club, Samantha M. Chemnitz at Pizza Oven, and Eliza M. Zweitzler at Pizza Oven, and approval of the renewal applications for 2016-2018 operator licenses for Guy P. DeVitt at Waypoint Public House, previously approved for 1 year in error. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. The consent agenda is unanimously approved. Moving on to item G, 1, unfinished business. There is none. Item 2, new business, consideration of ordinance 7-16-680, amending the official traffic map of the City of Monona for establishment of alternate side parking. Our Public Works Director, Mr. Stefani.
Thank you, Alderman Spate. In your packet, you do have the resolution for the proposed parking changes. There is a table that indicates the street, the current restrictions, and the proposed restrictions. There's template signage in the packet, and then I just handed out the updated map of the area for the proposed changes. This was discussed at the July 11th Public Works Committee meeting, and we also discussed it at the June 1st Public Works Committee meeting. Coming out of the July 11th meeting, the Public Works Committee approved the recommended plan for City Council to entertain tonight. On the resolution, we have a few different proposed restrictions. The first being establishment of the no parking, even odd calendar dates, alternate side parking, if you will, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, except holidays, September 1st to June 15th. The following streets: Wallace Avenue from Dean to Shore Acres, Gordon from Dean to Cold Spring from Monona Drive to Winnequa Road, Lofty from 110 feet west of Monona Drive to Wallace Avenue, and Parkway Drive from Monona Drive to Winnequa Road. The second area would be establishment of no parking here to corner except police vehicles. That's the current signage that you see on at Cold Spring at Monona Drive, right at the traffic light. We wish to keep that there for the police. I believe they sit at the corner every now and again and monitor the traffic. And the third, we have included the establishment of no parking here to corner at the following locations: Parkway Avenue at Monona Drive, Parkway Avenue at Shore Acres Road, Cold Spring Avenue at Shore Acres Road, Lofty Avenue at Gordon Avenue, Lofty Avenue at Wallace Avenue, Springhaven Avenue at Gordon Avenue, Gordon at Cold Spring, Gordon at Lofty, Gordon at Springhaven, Gordon at Dean, Wallace at Lofty, and Wallace at Shore Acres. At the July 11th Public Works Committee meeting, the topic that came up among the people who appeared did discuss the litter that the high school students leave behind. They discussed the sightline safety issues, and that's why we incorporated the establishment of no parking here to corner at those various locations. We did send out roughly 90 letters to all the residents and businesses in the affected area, including the high school. You'll see in the packet that Principal Paul Brost did provide an email comment. At the July 11th meeting, prior to the meeting, I had 6 email comments, which are included in your packet, 1 phone call from Mr. DeRosa. At the July 11th meeting, we had 6 attendees. 4 of them were against, 1 for, 1 neutral. At our June 1st meeting, the attendees were from Parkway and Wallace. We had 4 of them, and they were all for the proposed signage changes. What's driving this as far as Public Works is concerned is to improve our public works services that we offer. It'd be brush collection, leaf collection, solid waste, and recycle services, as well as our snow plowing in the wintertime. We have had a number of complaints from the Wallace Avenue residents over the years regarding our inability to perform those services adequately. So that's the Public Works Committee's goal as far as this parking plan. In the packet that you have, the high school principal, his main comments, I'd like to point out, he says he is concerned that the proposed change adds some stress to the beginning of the school day for students, as they are having to make sure that they are on the right streets on the corresponding day. And he has a bigger concern that the walking patterns of students as they cross Monona Drive. That concern is there either way. It's as the students park, whether it's on Wallace, Gordon, Parkway, Lofty, that is there. So that's what we have here tonight as far as discussion.
Make any comments? So I kind of want to address a few different pieces, but I would agree, and Dan, thank you for the great summary that I think sums up a lot of the previous discussions. And in addition to being at Public Works, this was brought in front of Public Safety, and we had a look at the enlargement of some of the parking restrictions to look at some safety concerns, particularly with having parking on both sides of the street as we currently have right now, and the congestion with that, not only to get vehicles down it, but also pedestrian traffic with traffic flow on a street with cars parked on both sides. So there were concerns from a public work standpoint as well as a public safety standpoint. I wanted to cover a few of the other things that were brought up in public comment just for some response. The no parking here to corner and sightline issues, it looks like was incorporated after the previous meeting. So I know some of those concerns were raised not only at Public Works but Public Safety in a general format. So I'm glad to see some of those pieces have been incorporated into that part. When I hear about concerns going back many years, 30 plus years, in parking concerns, our parking structures are significantly different. I think it'd be very difficult to compare any of our road infrastructure with something from that level of a history concept. And even if we look at just our high school parking lot and the change of the parking lot over that time, and the restriction of parking at the high school. So you need a permit to park at the high school. So a lot of our students that are parking in our streets are overflow from the high school, and likely the reason they went to a permit structure is to prevent many high school students from driving around quite quickly looking for a spot at the start of the school day. And so that is likely a way that the school district has managed the growth of cars over time. When we had some conversations about parking at the high school and the growing number of drivers of the high school and the parking concerns with that, there were other possibilities that were discussed at that meeting, but none were acceptable at the committee level, including looking at do you get parking tags for residential parking? Well, now you're looking at having what's the district called?
Parking utility.
You have to have a parking utility to go down that direction, and that was not seen as something that the committee wanted to entertain. When we looked at enforcement, so when there are concerns regarding current levels of enforcement, that's, although I appreciate those concerns, I get it. That's different than looking at a parking structure plan about how are we dealing with safety and public safety issues, or safety and public work issues. If there are enforcement issues, we should be addressing those issues as well. And it shouldn't be relying on a resident to continue to make those calls. If there's a pattern of behavior, we can take that from a public safety standpoint. So if that continues, I would like to address that way. I believe that there was one last part, and that had to do with business overflow. When we at a plan commission level look at business and redevelopment, part of that discussion is the parking plan. And reliance on city streets as a parking plan is not accepted as a means to gain the level of parking needed for routine businesses or routine business at that establishment. However, overflow from that business onto city streets is an acceptable thing for unusual circumstances. I think this would still accommodate that use of it. And if there are concerns with redevelopment in a particular area that we would need to look at reconfiguration of parking, I'd want us to re-entertain that, which we have done when we look at our commercial corridor over by the Walmart. We have re-looked at a lot of parking structure on those streets to allow businesses to expand. So just wanted to address some of the pieces that were brought up.
Thank you. Alder O'Connor.
I'm just curious, has anyone from the city, as part of this discussion, talked to the high school to see I've heard that there are a fair number of empty spots in the parking lot there. I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if that's because the permits have gotten to be so expensive that students don't, can't or don't want to pay for them. Is Cold Springs still no parking on the side by the tennis courts there? I know there's been issues with the city
Yes,
of Madison,
yeah.
and they have that gate, so that trying to keep students from getting in their neighborhood, and which then kind of forces everyone over to our side of Monona Drive. Is that still?
Right, parking is allowed eastbound on that side of Monona Drive. Westbound is not allowed. Regarding
Still there?
the gate is still there. Yeah. Regarding the tennis courts, the homes next to the tennis court on the corner, I've just heard, through various discussions that I believe they bought those homes with the intention of putting parking in, but the city of Madison is preventing them from putting parking in, so that's why they can't expand there. As far as the parking spaces at the high school, from what I understand, the spaces are all allocated. The seniors are allowed to leave. I'm not sure if the rest of the students are, juniors, but they're allowed to leave throughout the day, come and go. If they, I don't know if they start work early or if they're whatever it is, but I understand that they have approvals to come and go as needed, so that's why we see the occasional empty space at the high school. So, but as far as we know, their permits are full.
I just want to, have we been talking about this parking? They bring up a good point. It's never going to go away, this parking issue, and we kind of just keep moving it. Have we incorporated the district in these conversations of?
They've been sent our
incentives
letters.
or different things like that?
Well, as far as the incentives, I don't know if we don't have a parking utility to, I don't know if that's the charge of Public Works is to start talking incentives. I don't.
Or just to include them in the conversation.
They've had opportunity.
Yeah.
They've had opportunity, and we've received one comment. And it really didn't focus a whole lot on the proposed parking, rather than still making sure the students have a safe way to cross Monona Drive, and making sure that they don't get the days confused as to what side they can park on. That's what we have from the principal.
Yeah.
They didn't show up at any of our Public Works Committee meetings. They didn't show up here. They've had the letters, so I don't know. I don't know.
I would just add, is because I'm on the Public Works Committee, one of our concerns was equity in the neighborhood. When this started out and we controlled parking on Gordon, but didn't control it really beyond Gordon, what we did was we created this kind of strange, regulation of parking, whereby the kids were just going to Wallace because they didn't have to worry about the 2-hour potential ticket. And we felt like it was not really fair given the volume of traffic and given the chaos created by strict rules on one street that the police don't have the resources to enforce, followed by no real rules on the next street. It was just inviting the sort of anarchy that we have. And so our logic, and we're completely open to the fact that we're going to be revisiting this after trying whatever we do this year. But our goal is to try to make it more equitable in the neighborhood so that we hope we can accomplish the city services, we don't burden the police with undue enforcement, and perhaps the kids will all find a place to park more safely and have more street to walk in. I mean, we're really trying to balance all the issues I've heard here tonight, but we by no means think this is the perfect solution. It's just, the best thing the committee's come up with so far.
Just to, that crosswalk, have we considered in the past or with this proposal considered making it more safer with lights or with signals or different things?
At the Lofty crosswalk, we had some conversations through email with the school this year, And I even went as far as proposing a cost share for the rapid flash beacon system. And the principal wrote back to our project coordinator, they're not interested in cost sharing. That sort of system, after all the materials and labor, is going to be less than $20,000. And, as a public works department, we're willing to do our part to help provide that sort of system. It's a safe system. It really grabs the attention of the motorist, but I think it's not too much to ask to be met halfway on that. That's quite a bit of money. And other departments with our city, we all have capital budget needs, and I think proposing a cost share was a good gesture, but it was shot down. So.
I guess just my general comment, and I know we've sent letters and different things like that, but I don't know if it would be the mayor or a city administrator. I would just encourage the city to try to engage them, because as we all know, this isn't going to go away, and we're fearful that more and more parking will come, and who knows, maybe roads down the way will start complaining about more overflow parking. But
I'd like to add that if they do want to cost share on that rapid flash beacon system, as Public Works, we'd be more than happy to lead that effort, get it installed and maintain it. We'd look for half the cost for installation and half the cost for maintenance and upkeep. But we'd be more than happy to take that lead.
thanks.
Just one more question. When you've been contacted the district, for example, about this flashing light, did you just contact the high school, or did you contact the superintendent?
I'm not sure. I believe the conversation that Brad had through the email, and I was copied on, I think it was with the principal.
I think it might be a good idea to check with the superintendent.
Is that Mr. Olson? Okay.
One concern that I will share that came up at our hearing last week was that we certainly don't want to alienate the school district in our attempts to make this a more manageable situation. Someone just said it flat out. If Monona becomes an unwelcome place for the high school, don't give them any ideas. And so I do think we should be sensitive to that. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish with this. But again, if there's a better way, we want to hear it.
I'm just thinking, I think each school has a very limited budget with funds that they don't already have allocated to certain purposes, and maybe if it was done at the district level as part of their budgeting, they might be able to just work it into their overall budget rather than asking might be a lot easier for that to happen there than for the principal trying to come up with $10,000 from his budget if he doesn't really have.
Right. We'll reach out to him.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you very much. We'll take this up again at our next meeting. Moving on now to item 2B, consideration of the resolution 16-7-2109, accepting a Public Service Commission water rate increase. Finance Director Hodeker.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to kind of do a presentation and kind of follow through your pack at the same time, just so you kind of have an idea what I'm talking to. There's only a couple sheets on my presentation. This is the just kind of where we came from this. Page 2, I numbered it, would be the second fiscal note. This was the fiscal note used why we applied for a water rate increase with the Public Service Commission, and just kind of hit on why we did it. We did it to meet debt requirements. There's certain debt requirements you got to make when you take out revenue bonds. We did lose our largest user, 2014, Becton Dickerson. They left. That was a big loss. A lot of usage. They did leave. On 3 and 4, just couldn't combine them. We basically have spent, since our last water rate increase, we spent almost $4 million, over a little over $4 million in infrastructure programs. So that's one. It's increasing our debt, and so it's we're spending more debt, and so we need more money to cover debt requirements. So that's why we're here. When we did approve a resolution for the water rate increase authorization to apply with the PSC. The council wanted two things to look at. One, they wanted two different proposals. One, the same water rate structure that we have right now. So if you look on page, I'm just going to put it up here, current rate structure. If you look on page 3, this is our current rate structure. So kind of look at the quantity water charges. It just says what our units are. Resident charges, or it's an inclining rate structure, which is a conservation rate structure. And the non-commercial rates have a declining rate structure. That's the rate structure we have right now. So what the council wanted to do is they wanted to take a look at what it would look like if you just use our status quo with that type of rate structure, or we want to look at a conservation rate structure for the commercial units, the non-residential. And thinking maybe we can do a same thing, inclining rate structure with non-residential. PSC did do that. There's going to be, they did give us two different proposals based on those options. And I'll explain the second proposal with the conservation rates for the non-residential in a little bit. But using both proposals, if you go, let's get on page 4, the first proposal. They did recommend an overall increase of 15%, or basically 3% each year since our last water rate increase, which was 2011. That's I guess the way I was looking at it. So it's a little over, it's more than inflation, but it's 3% per year, or 15% of one big lump sum in 5 years. One of the two. So the last rate increase was 2011. So on page 4, this is the first proposal we got from Public Service Commission, and this would be using the same rate structure that we currently have. So if you look at page 4, I just want to hit on couple little things here. I didn't talk about this at the finance, but just on the first page, second column, it says revenues at the present rates. So this is our revenues at almost 1.5 million is what we currently have, 1.46. So what we did, we turn in the analysis, we give it to the Public Service Commission, and they look at it, and they look at all our rates, all our debt, all our usage, who uses it, which categories are using it, different, how many meters we have, and they do a whole analysis. They look at our operating expenses. So they come back and say, here's what you guys need, how much revenue you need to cover those services with their debt. They basically came up with, on this third column, and revenue required, which is the cost to serve, 1,691,855. So the PSC comes back and they have to figure out how they're going to determine those rates based on those numbers. So if you go to the kind of the columns, it says proposed rate, increase over the present rates. The total overall is 15%. But during their rate analysis, as you can see on the second to last column, is what they're saying for each different categories, for residential, multifamily, commercial, etc. So it's 15% overall. The one thing you see, there's a 0% increase for public fire protection. And this is the one that kind of balances, I guess, a little bit. So public fire protection is basically the infrastructure used for hydrants and other things to provide public fire protection. It's not your actual fire departments, the actual mains and infrastructures. So our method we use is basically a mill rate method. It's only one in the state that uses it. So they determined what the cost is to provide that service, the revenue we needed, and that number didn't change because so the mill rates, we determined a new mill rate based on your lane improvement. So the overall revenue we needed didn't change, but just like your tax bill, if your lane improvement went up, you might have a higher number. If it went down, you might have a higher or lower number. So that's 0. So they took that at 0. So that's using the 15%. So to get the other 15%, they use. That's why some of these are over 15%. That's why you see 25, 18, and 19, because that's 0 in the public fire protection. That's why overall it's 15, but how they got to that is the 0 in public fire protection.
Mark?
Yeah.
I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Because we use a mill rate structure, they're saying the public fire protection we don't have increased costs in that area?
Right. The provided service, they're saying that numbers, their analysis is roughly that same revenue numbers. They kept that the same. I'm sure they could have tweaked it a little bit, a couple thousand here or there, but wouldn't have made a difference. Less than 1%. So they left it at 0.
And where, oh, I'm sorry, where would that have, so the 472,000, is that billed through, currently is that billed through property tax dollar?
It's billed to your utility bills, but the method you use to determine the amount on utility bill is basically considered like a mill rate. So they take the 472,000 and they divide it by all the land and
value.
all the land improvement values, and they get basically a mill rate. And I think we have to go back to the individual person to figure out their individual tax amount or individual.
Okay.
So nobody has the same exact public fire protection. Everybody has a totally different, unless you had the same land improvement number.
And you said we're the only community that uses that?
Yeah, they're the only ones that use that method. We changed that the last rate case. We changed it, and that's the method that came up in the Public Works Committee. About 5 years, 6 years.
In other communities?
They use different methods. They do like the method we had before that was there was a block, say from 0 to 100,000 land improvement. Everybody got, I'm just gonna say $5 charge, and then 100,001 to 200,000, everybody got $10. That was our old rate. A lot of communities just say if you're residential, you get a set fee charge. You know, commercial, it's the same. So there's different variables, ours is unique because we're the only ones that does that. And that was determined by Public Works, like 5 or 6 in the last rate case, 2011.
Thanks.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. I think years and years ago, we actually had the public fire protection charge, which is basically the fire hydrant charge.
Yes, that's the
right?
basic part of it.
Was paid out of property taxes.
Correct.
I assume there's no way we could shift that much money onto because it would go on the levy.
Not anymore.
Yeah, it'd be, okay.
Yeah.
That would have been, it's more advantageous, I think, to the property owner if it's on the property tax bill rather than on your utility bill.
Right, because you basically what this number is the same bill you get on the part of your property taxes.
Right.
Same exact number.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just so you got to pay it up front every four times a year or one time a year.
Right.
You can't take the tax deduction.
Yeah. So basically what they're telling us, if you compare the revenues, the present rate to the required revenues, it's about 225,000 we need to get, and that's how they got their 15%. So first proposal is, go to page 6. I'm just going to go look at the plus volume charges because that's where the main changes are. So as you can see, probably for next time I'll kind of, if I go to page 3, I'm going to just compare page 3 to page 6. So currently we're paying $2.40 for that first 10. Now it's $2.97. 2.85. Now it's 3.5 for the next 15. Anything over 25 units went from $3.75 to $4.50 for residential. That doesn't change. It's the same for both proposal 1 and 2. So in proposal 1 again, for the non-residential charges, has the declining rate. So it went from 2.55 for every 70 units used to $3. And then from 2.4 for next 430 units to 2.8. And anything over 500 units went from $1.85 to 2.25. So it's the same structure, just different charges for each different unit used. So that is that. If you go to page 8, just so I'm going to go to page 8. So this is proposal number 2. I just want to show how this compares. So this again shows that 15% overall increase in proposal number 2. Again, we need about 225,000. And this shows how in the second proposal, how that's spread out between each different category. Again, as you notice, public fire protection is 0. So we go page 10. So So these are the conservation rates for, the council asked for conservation rates. So when I was talking to the PSC, I was talking to about an inclining rate structure for non-residential. They told me that was discriminating against businesses to have an inclining rate structure for them. Basically, they said that you're penalizing larger commercial. They're basically not apples to apples. Each business is totally different from there's small ones, there's large ones. So we're penalizing the larger commercial users. And they said that they couldn't design a rate structure for that because it'd be discriminating against different types of commercial users. What they decided is this proposal number 2. So again, residential class customers for usage stayed exactly the same. So what they did for non-residential class customers, which would be your commercial, industrial users. You do have 8 industrial users, so they're in there too. So they said that we'll charge them the same rate for every unit used. We won't have a decline structure at all. We just charge them $2.70 per unit used. And that's basically the PSC is kind of a conservation rate. And then we have another category we have to separate is multifamily residentials. So what those are more than 4 units places. So it'd be large. You'd have your complex, your apartment complexes, your big senior housings, your newer ones that just went down by Trace, and those type of facilities all would fall underneath that category. And then you have your 8-unit duplexes, or not duplexes, 8-unit apartment units. They all kind of fall underneath that category. And so they have a rate, and they charge them $3.10 per unit. So that was the PSC's proposal to kind of some conservation rates. So what I did it on page 12, 13, and 14, just so you have, just kind of figure out who really falls in these categories for each of them. So page 12, if I get winded here, I'm sorry. Please stop me anytime questions. So residential, I just did, so again, proposed options 1 and 2 with exactly the same. So I did 3 different options, 3 different categories. I did a small user, which is your single or 1 or 2 people per household. They're pretty conservative about their water. What their increase would be. Just so you kind of follow it, everyone has a meter charge, and that's your $21, and that increased to $27. That's your $6 there, and then your usage from using 8 units, $19.20 to $23.76. So those smaller users are seeing about a little over $10 and some change increase for 1 or 2 household. Your average user, actually use a couple of families I knew that 5 in our household, but it's usually 4 or more. This is kind of your average user. As you can see, what the proposal would be, $67.80 to $84.70. That's a lot of your average users. And 18, that's like I said, that's a family of 5 with 3 younger kids. And then your larger users, these are your people who water a lot during the summer, who have pools, indoor, outdoor pools, and have leaks. A lot of times they fall underneath these categories. So that would be their increases. Go to the next page. These are basically your commercial users. The first one is your small commercial user. You can see the difference using the 3 different rates. So the current rate, these are just small, really, businesses. They're not restaurants, they're not fast food, they're just small insurances and whatnot type of situations. Actually 12 is probably a little high, but using 12 units, and you see your current rate. Here's proposed on the option number 1, you'll see it's $63, and then under 2, what's the flat fee, you'll see that it's $59. And I picked a couple restaurants and kind of compared, and so they use about 105 units. And you can compare what they use for 1, 2, and different options. And then I did the same thing with large retail. It's some of your big box retailers, so that's what those would be using. That'd be your increases there. And the last one is our largest commercial user. The total there doesn't add up. It should have been 994 cubic feet used. But that is one of our largest users. I kind of use that as an example. Is what their increases in different options for 1 and 2. So you can kind of, if you're comparing what you're looking at, how they all fit in each different categories. And I did on page 14. I did the same thing with multifamily. Multifamily, I put large apartments, 5 to 8 units. That's kind of the increases there. Second category, I put multifamily large apartments. Those are your couple big ones that just went in. That'd be their usage. In the multifamily large complexes, it'd be like your bigger senior housing, big condos, associations that have 1 meter. So that'd be those increases there. So those are the kind of comparisons from options 1 and 2. And I did on page 15, just kind of see their water usage data from 15. Just if you look at residential, multifamily, commercial, public authority, you can see these are each unit that was used on the first 1,000 cubic feet, next 15. And so you can kind of see, like multifamily, we don't have a lot over that 500. And, commercial, we don't either. Public authority is pretty. We don't have a lot of users there. Use that much water there. So you can kind of see where they fall into those categories as a whole. With that. And then on page 16, these are a number of meters, meter sizes, and then what in each category who has it. For residential, the 3/4 meters, we have that's the majority of those. 5/8 and 3/4, but basically the same type of meters. We have 2,500. A multifamily, you do have bigger units, so they're going to be 2-inch meters, 3-inch meters. Commercial, as you can see, 3/4 and 1 is where a lot of our meters are. So there's not a lot of big commercial users, so there's usually smaller commercials. So it's kind of a breakdown as far as how many have each different categories. It breaks down the meters. I don't know if you have much other questions. This is more the first read. So what I need, I guess, eventually is I have to report back to the PSC, tell them which option we want to go with. And then once you figure out the option you guys would approve and all that, they would have a public hearing too. And then once that's done, the rates would apply. You definitely have to have something by end of September, because once you go past a certain date, they make you do all. They want you to do all over again. So there's kind of deadlines they have to make. They use it based on the data, the current data they have. I guess I don't know if you guys have questions.
So Mark, we talked in personnel and finance a little bit about what, if anything, the council might ask for other than
Yes.
proposal 1 or 2. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. Basically, we give this information to the PSC, and they do their rate analysis. There's a couple things that we can do. One is we can say we don't want the 15%. We want to go with 10%. Now, we do have to maintain our coverage. That's the biggest thing in this whole thing is our debt coverage. We can say, maybe we want 10%, or we want to split it over 2 years. So if that's the option, I have to go back to the PSC, and they would rerun the numbers and give us a new set of categories for each different things. But that is an option to do. So you could do it over 2 years, or you could do a number less than 15%. Would caution go too far under 15%, or because we do have to cover our debt, and this is kind of the analysis they did for that, and that might require another increase quicker than you would with the 15%. So that is the two things you could look at.
I also, in our discussion earlier tonight, I asked Mark if he could maybe provide us some comparisons of some of the current proposal 1 versus proposal 2 on the same chart, because I had a lot of difficulty comparing the two proposals and how they differed. But when you put the charts side by side, it's a little bit easier, and so I think we're going to have that for our next meeting, so that
Yeah.
it'll be a little.
Anything else anybody needs, you're welcome to contact me or I can go through it in the office. But if anybody has questions now.
Did you say we have to have a public hearing also, and do we do that before or after we vote on it?
Basically, yeah, we'd vote on it, and then PSC would basically have a public hearing, and we'd send it out, and we have it like at a location in our office or another location, and then facilitate.
So once we approve it,
Yeah.
then they have the meeting. Okay.
Yes.
Alder Holmquist.
So Mark, when they gave a comment on the a single fixed rate for non-resident, did they use a similar reasoning for a single rate for multifamily?
I don't know the difference exactly why. I think they did multifamily a little bit. I think they were thinking that's more close to the residential because that's more residential users, not commercial users. So it's a little bit more in line with residential users. So I think that's why the rates are a little bit higher than a commercial user because I think it's more people and customers. I don't know if that really answers your question.
I'll just comment. It took me a little while to wrap my head around that notion of not being able to provide an incentive for kind of a higher rate with a higher level of use. And so, you think about a multifamily dwelling that has a single meter. If you have 50 households in one building, the notion of having a higher rate for those households really isn't fair when you consider that a given home has that same meter. And obviously, a single family, we'd want to discourage high water use. Right. But when you have 100 families versus 50, the notion that each family ends up having a higher rate of water just is, inherently unfair. And that the same thing goes for commercial users, even though I had the same reaction as you did. Why can't we promote some sort of conservation? I think the only way you would do it, and I'm not sure the laws allow it, would be to have a comparative rate, where if you reduce your rate or something, because a given business is going to have a given amount of water usage that might be extremely higher than, say, a given household. A single family dwelling is simply not going to see a lot of variation in its demand for water. Whereas a business that employs 1,000 people has a much higher demand for water, or a manufacturing facility might have a much higher demand for water. Does that make sense? I thought it was bizarre, but until I thought about it.
Sorry, being new, is it normal to wait 5 years for a water rate increase, or what's the normal? And then kind of the subsequent question is, and maybe this is an appropriate question, is how much longer until we have to ask for another one? So does the 15% include kind of future infrastructure needs?
It does take in some future need in there. Usually kind of been on a 5-year cycle. What we could do in the future, I guess we could do, there's what they call an automatic increase. So after you do a water rate case, you have, I think it's a year and a half, and then each year after that, they give an inflationary increase each year. So that could be something to do instead of just kind of doing all at once every 5 years. But it's kind of been on, even before I was here, it seems like it's every 5 or 6 years we've been doing it that way. But it's called simplified rate increase is what it is after a year and a half. They tell you what are the inflation or something. PSC tells you everybody can increase it by. But usually it's like last time, I think it was like a 30% increase. So I think the increase, I don't know if it was that 25 maybe.
It was high.
It was high. It was a lot higher than this.
It was high.
Yeah. And so basically, I think the thought was it was kind of a big increase, kind of taper a little bit, and then kind of come back again here. But it is something to think about if that's something you guys want to do. Simplify one every year, or wait every 5 or 6 years, I guess, is the way to look at it. I think should be discussed and have later on.
Well, I guess a follow-up question, maybe this. We've obviously accumulated some debt waiting, correct? Would doing the simplified version over the years create less debt, or?
That wouldn't affect the debt. I mean, it would affect the coverage. It would help with making the coverage. I guess the debt comes down to is, Dan has a lot of his cast iron main that we're replacing, and that's kind of dictating a lot of our debt. So that's, that's a lot of it. And a lot of it's, there's Monona Drive is in here, some other large projects. I know you'll see in the 2017 capital, there's going to be Public Works is looking at the capital, and there's another cast iron replacement. So really the kind of the infrastructure of the cast iron is driving a lot of this for the infrastructure, for the debt requirements. The capital purchases. Cast iron stuff.
Any further questions? All right, we'll look forward to revisiting this next time.
If anybody has questions, you can just let me know at the office or email.
All right, next up we have item H, reports of committees, commissions, boards, mayor, city administrator, city attorney, and department managers. Item number 1, strategic plan update. Our economic development director is going to come to the podium and give us an update. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here to provide an update on the portions of the city's strategic plan that are listed as my responsibility. All of the strategies that I'm going to talk about are nested under the overarching goal of supporting community and economic development, which looks like this. This is one of the sort of chapters of the strategic plan. So all of the strategies I've just pulled directly from this part of the plan, and they are listed in the handout in your packets for tonight. So starting at the top with the 4 that were accomplished, we have achieved the completion of the comprehensive plan update. And as you all know, that was a long process. It's resulted in a document that will be easier to use and update and maintain in the future. We'll continue to use that as we review new developments in the city and to guide other action items for other city departments that are not just planning and economic development. The second accomplishment was implementing a new wayfinding system. This is the signage throughout the community that I think turned out really well. The Plan Commission did a good job designing the signs, and we spent a lot of time debating whether we should use Arial font or Helvetica, and I think it worked out well. And when I drive around in other communities, I realize how ineffective theirs are in comparison, sometimes if they have really small font or too much information on the signs. So I do think that ours turned out really well in comparison to some of the ones that I've seen. The third one is a new economic development webpage. This is up and running, and it has a lot of good information on there, including all of our TIF project plans and redevelopment areas, demographic reports, marketing materials like maps that we've created over time. Just posted last week were video testimonials from local businesses on what it's like to work with the city, and those were presented at our Build Monona event. I posted those on LinkedIn, and they had 100 views so far over, I think, 2 days. So things like that are useful to potential new businesses or developers are posted on the new website. And previously that information just was kind of scattered everywhere. So I think that's working well. Number 4, streamline and standardized process for development review. I've listed this as completed because I'm always making continuous improvements to it over time. I don't know if there's a day and time where you'll say, yes, it's perfect. So I've moved it up there because we have made some improvements that I think have been measurable, as far as, things like shortening staff reports that go to Plan Commission that just allow me to get packets out more quickly, and then requires less review time for commission members, hopefully. Utilizing electronic documents, which saves a ton of time working developers when they can just send me a PDF instead of waiting days to mail it or wait for them to come and drop off hard copies. So just small things like that on a day-to-day we can improve and standardize our process, make it easier for people. So the next section are strategies from the strategic plan that are in progress, starting with number 1, consider overlay districts or a business improvement district on commercial corridors. This was discussed at some point in time as a possible option to address maintenance concerns for specifically things like landscaping, snow removal for businesses up and down Monona Drive, in a way to encourage everyone to put resources into maintaining all of the landscaping and improvements and money that the city put into improving Monona Drive. So as far as progress of that strategy, we have a meeting scheduled with the Chamber, MESBA, Monona East Side Business Alliance, Christy Schilling, to discuss if that might be appropriate for Monona Drive. It may not, it might, but we're going to discuss that and possible alternatives. Number 2 is just repetitive because it comes from a different section of that one pager that I shared. Number 3, facilitate development of North Monona Drive. In this area, this would be development efforts that are consistent with redevelopment area project plan number 7. The city does own a couple of properties up there and considers additional property acquisition as appropriate or as it becomes available. The city has not taken any steps to purchase additional property at this time, so we're kind of working in a limited way of marketing the availability of those 2 properties to potential developers, and also encouraging people to pursue acquisition of other properties as guided by the private sector, rather than the city getting involved in property acquisition until we determine that it's an appropriate time. Number 4, facilitate public access and commercial waterfront development. As you all know, we've put substantial resources in to the riverfront redevelopment project at Bridge Road and Broadway, including concept plans that include a public plaza, new boardwalk space along the water, commercial development that would encourage gathering and public access along the water. So that's underway, and we'll be happy to move it up to the top section soon. Number 5, develop financial assistance package for potential businesses. I did not do this. I don't necessarily think it's necessary to produce a specific package because it's going to be different based on every person that comes in. They might get information on the facade improvement grant, on the Renew Monona program, on this TIF district versus that TIF district, so I don't expect that to really change, but we do point people to resources as appropriate. Number 6, broaden marketing and development potential to other markets. So I believe the idea behind this strategy was to reach outside of our local crop of developers that have done really good projects in Monona over recent years and expand that into developers in other markets, expanding into Milwaukee, Chicago, throughout the Midwest, and people that might be able to bring additional resources to the community. So we have done some of that, especially with the Riverfront redevelopment project, working with Vanderwall. I know all of you have received various MailChimp correspondence, emails that were also sent to other people on a really big spreadsheet of refined developers from the Midwest region. And we have gotten calls back from some of them. We've talked to people from Dallas, Chicago, Minneapolis, and then within Wisconsin, La Crosse, Milwaukee, for various development potential at the riverfront. Number 7 is another one that I did not really think is necessary. This refers to the TIF report that's on the website. This TIF report was solicited in 2013, and it's a really easy narrative describing for both residents and potential developers how the city has utilized TIF funding for projects in the past and what the benefit has been to the community and to that project itself. And I just don't think I need a marketing plan to be able to share that with people. So there's no marketing plan for the TIF report. Number 8, streamline permitting process. Again, this is similar to the strategy that I've listed as accomplished. Continuous improvements are made over time. Number 9, investigate options on funding and expanding of the program to improve our housing quality. And we do have a tangible step towards progress on this one with the university year housing courses reviewing potential improvements with our Renew Monona program. When TID number 2 closes in 2018, there will be a large sum of increment coming off from that district to plug back into the Renew Monona program, and the housing courses through university year will be helping us to figure out what the best way is to utilize that money and to improve the program. And then getting into the final section on items not started. focus business attraction on Southtown Industrial Park is number one. So that's the area south of the Beltline. And I've listed that as not started and then described that available locations really are not abundant in that area. I think there might be one or two vacant properties. So I've noted that perhaps we readjust this goal to more engagement with existing businesses in that area. And again, Christy's done a good job of reaching out to people like Phoenix Nuclear Labs and Shine Medical Technologies. And I think there's some potential to work with businesses more in that area just to find out what their needs are and how things are going and what other types of additional business growth might be appropriate back in the business park area. Number 2 and 3 are similar, and I've noted they are updating the Broadway corridor plan and an economic development plan. And I've listed those as not a priority because I don't think we want to start a planning process just for fun. We want to be able to identify a need to do so. And granted, the Broadway corridor plan is 26 years old and it looks a little bit outdated. I don't think there's a major policy shift that we need to address. Perhaps it's something that I could clean up at the staff level, but just haven't listed that as a priority. And then number 4, under not started, identify outside funding sources for businesses and residential improvements. We continue to review grant eligibility as they come up from places like the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and the DNR. An example of this is we have a large spreadsheet with due dates and program eligibility for the riverfront. So we'll continue doing that. Number 5, create market report for potential businesses and developers. We have pulled market data using software called Esri's Business Analyst Online, and we've posted that on the economic development webpage, and we share that with developers, and it identifies things like what's in the community now as far as this type of retail use and where dollars are being spent in other communities that we might be able to harness in Monona. So it points out data like that, and we share that with developers as appropriate. I put it under not yet started because we just haven't put that into a specific report. I don't know that it's necessary. And then number 6, partner with Madison, City of Madison, WEDC, Wisconsin Economic Development Association, and others. I've just noted that this is an ongoing effort. I attend meetings for things like the Madison Regional Economic Partnership and different groups to hear about what's going on, and we'll take note of anything that we might be able to partner on. Those were all of the strategies that are listed in the existing 2014 strategic plan, and I've listed 2 new ones that we'll focus on in addition to those, and one is establish a tourism commission. I'll be working with April on this in response to the state law changes with the 2015 room tax laws. And number 2, updating the sign code, which will help to streamline some permitting processes specifically related to signage. That's all.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Are there any questions? All right. Well, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
All right. Now we will move on to, I think,
The rest of the reports.
various committees, right? So, Alder O'Connor.
Landmarks is meeting this Wednesday at the library at 4:30, and Transit is meeting next Monday at 6:30, where we'll be discussing proposals for bus service for the next 5 years. And, is that at City Hall? I'm not sure.
I think so.
And the packets are in your
Yes,
boxes.
yep, I got them.
Need a small little cart to haul them.
Yeah.
Alder Wood.
The ad hoc emergency dispatch committee has continued to meet. We had an excellent meeting, I think, last week with the Verona police chief, who gave us a very frank assessment of their situation, where they have, the county does, and has for a long time done all of their dispatching. And I believe we're meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So
Correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully we'll have a recommendation to the council in the near future. That's all.
Okay. Alder Kitzlar.
Libraries is meeting tomorrow. One of the things we are considering, as Doug probably knows, is realignment of the parking lot and trying to think about that for the future capital budget. And then, I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder with Parks and Rec, but we all have heard the news of the vandalism problems at Schluter Beach with porta potties being burned. So I know Jake is looking into a possible budget amendment in the future with adding cameras to that, since it's been persistent and continuous. So, and then the other two.
Thank you. Holmquist.
If I have it correct, there is a public information meeting for Public Works tomorrow night at 6:30 in the Monona Community Center.
Correct.
And that is regarding reconstruction of the McKenna Road. Looking at some of the different possibilities for that. And then again on Thursday, the 21st, at 6:30 in the Monona Community Center, there is a public information meeting, and that one is regarding other road construction projects, but particularly Tony and Watha, Progressive, Schultz, and West Dean. So 2 public information meetings tomorrow night, Tuesday 6:30, and Thursday night, the 21st at 6:30, both in the Monona Community Center.
Good, thank you. I guess I'll just add, as an alder, that sustainability will meet on Thursday night of this week at 5:30, which is back to our normal time. And that will, well, right?
6:30
It's
is
an-
when it usually meets.
It's an hour early since we missed the last meeting. We were unable to have our meeting last month, so he's extending it. So he's meeting 5:30.
Okay, got it. Thank you. We were meeting later at one point because of
yeah.
soccer games, so I was confused by all of
We
that.
haven't been consistent in a while.
Okay. So we spin a wheel and decide when we're going to meet. So
Yeah.
5:30
That's how they all are.
this week. Yeah. Okay. Joan, anything from the city clerk?
Well, dealing with the fact that ballots were printed and they mailed out over 150 absentee ballots, and then the Dane County clerk discovered that the ballots are unreadable by the machine. So all of those, as they come to the polling place, will have to be remade. So it's kind of a glitch in this, one more glitch in the system that kind of keeps things interesting.
But at least we will know that the people that cast their ballot are the people that are on their ID. Even though we can't read their ballot. Sorry. Don't give this guy the gavel.
No. That's okay.
All right. Administrator Little.
They are collecting storm waste this week. I forgot to ask Dan when he was here when they were expected to finish. I don't think they finished all today, but they are out there this week. Just a little thing that Sonia did not mention, we're taking all kinds of meetings on all kinds of economic development items, shall we say, so we're hoping we'll have some exciting things to report soon. Fingers crossed. One thing I bandied about with Leah, how we should get this in front of the council, is the recodification review, and it's a 666-page document right now, plus another 100-page editorial analysis. So, wanted to get your opinion if you would like budget style the entire big thick document in a binder, or if you would like us to post sections as they're done with committees and staff reviews, and then just bring forward anything that might be a policy change. The vast majority will not be policy change, but there will be some. A good example of a potential change right now is dogs in parks, I believe, is one of the things that Parks Board is looking at. So right now, there is a survey that you can get to on our website, so if folks in the public would like to take that survey, but they are looking at the input as part of the code review. So just looking for a little feedback on how you want to deal with this 777-page giant document. In the end, it will be like the assessment roll. We'll have it out for the public in its final form with all of our scratched up changes made to it, that people can come in and look at it before you finally adopt it. But in the meantime, it's, as you know from committees working on it, it's kind of a big unwieldy thing, and frankly, the more eyes on the document, the better, because it's devil's in the details on this one, unfortunately. So just looking for some feedback how you want to address that here in front of council, so I don't go ahead and make 7 copies of 777 pages, so with unnecessarily.
Is Alder O'Connor?
I just have a question, Earl. If you were to post
Mm-hmm.
the bulk of it, except for major policy changes, I assume these changes are tracked in the documents so we could tell what the changes were?
Some are right. There's actually 2 parts to this. There's the manuscript, which is basically our ordinance book rewritten and reformatted. Some of the changes are directly, in the pages of the document, but a lot of them will be in the editorial and legal analysis, which will say, section 16-20H, do you want to make it have this change A or this change B? And then we just check the box and say, make it say this change. But that doesn't mean you necessarily go back to the document and show that change in the document. So that's why I said this is a very, I think the mayor calls it making sausage. This is one of those projects where it's almost easier to have the whole thing laid out in front of you, both documents side by side, to truly get the true picture of what this thing will look like. When it comes back to us, all those changes will be incorporated. It'll be a cleaner looking document, but right now it's just very messy.
Then you won't be able to see what the changes are, though?
Correct. I mean, they'll just be incorporated. There will be footnotes that will say, for example, if you changed it without a formal ordinance, you can say changed as part of the recodification process, this section, but it won't show the lines out and everything like that. So,
Isn't it almost akin to a constitutional convention or something? I mean, we're essentially rewriting our entire ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, yeah, you could. There's entire sections that, we're saying, we're suggesting, for example, when it comes to complaints, it pretty much mimics the statute with literally a couple of sentence changes, which is stuff like, I'll tell the mayor that we're doing this, which, we would do that anyway. So instead of having this whole chapter, we can just say, Chapter 60 of the statutes is hereby adopted. And then the whole chapter can go away. So yeah, there are certain chapters that may change a great deal, and then there's some that they basically said no changes, unless we want them, such as committee size, committee name. That's something we're talking about in finance. But yeah, this is like kind of your one shot to really, make extensive changes. Anything from once that book is adopted going forward, you'll have to pay a charge for them to do that. So if you have extensive changes in a year, you'll have to pay separately per page. And then what will happen in the future is they'll literally give you the pages from the book rewritten. If they overflow, they'll kind of give you those pages, and they'll say replace pages in this book with, replace page 35 with page 35, and it says on the bottom supplement number 1, supplement number 2. So you'll see that page was changed going forward in the future. So, but for now, yeah, there's lots of scribbles and scratches. A big chunk is what's the state agency that changed its name? Is it Diller? Yeah, so there's some state agency name changes, there's some statute number changes, things that are required by statute for us to change, such as the economic development grant that we do for liquor licensing. State statute said we can't do that anymore, so again, we can bring that and discuss it, but essentially the state law says can't do it, we have to delete it. So, but I'd rather, you have the opportunity to at least look at it in some fashion. So, if there's something particular that you see or something that you have questions about, outside of your own committee, because I know in committees you've each looked at some sections of it, but then that's all 666 pages come together.
Are you looking for suggestions?
Yeah, just how you would like that to come before you, if you want me to, bring, copy up chunks at a time and bring them forward with discussion. You want me to,
I would
however you would like
encourage
to
us
do.
to consider digital copies of the chunks that we reference
Okay.
and the 100-page editorial directive piece,
Mm-hmm.
electronic, and for those of us that want it printed, to have that piece printed, and to review smaller chunks rather than the whole thing, but in reasonable chunks to get the thing accomplished.
Yeah. If you looked at them in committee, you know what I'm talking about. They take a long time to poke through in cases. And just print the analysis part of it, paper copy.
To provide that as an option for folks, but
Sure.
those that don't want it in a printed format does not.
Gotcha.
I agree with
Okay.
with
Okay.
Brian.
Do we have a sense of the timeline that we might want to try to tackle this?
Yeah, some sections are ready to go now, so we can start, putting that in chunks. I'm not sure. Sonia, Plan Commission has a huge has a huge chunk. Where was Plan Commission finished with their sections completely?
There's a few small things to wrap up. So we'll look at it one more time.
Okay, so I'll talk to you about that, because that right there is a big chunk to look through. So there might be like some chapters, for example, Public Works and Joan's sections are pretty much done, except I pulled back the tree chapter for Public Works because I looked at it and said, we're only talking about elm disease, not emerald ash borer or anything else. I think this is a little outdated. So I pulled it back and contacted the DNR and said, can you help us out a little bit with this section? So I'm kind of trying to skim through them too as they come. So I might stop it after the committee, before or after the committee has seen it, because sometimes there's questions that department heads struggle with, and I try to help answer, like, fines, fees, forfeitures. Those are all pulled out and put in another section, so that'll be another whole separate 30-page document for you guys to review and enjoy. Maybe not next meeting, but maybe the one following that, because I think everybody's kind of struggling with that section as well. So it's a monster project for sure, but I have a feeling there will be a couple sections in the end that may hang us up like dogs in parks. So that might take a few meetings just to talk about a couple issues that could be controversial, shall we say, which is, I think, how usually these things go. There will just be a couple things that will take us a while to struggle through. So that's the overview of the project. So
What would be the earliest date that we might start to see some of this?
next meeting.
Okay.
Yep. I'd like to get a lot of that out there in advance of the budget meeting, so as much as we can.
That would be the April 1st meeting? Or August, I'm sorry, August.
People do that to me a lot. No.
August 1st meeting?
You call me that in emails sometimes, don't you? Yes, August.
So I will still be presiding over that meeting, and I just want to let everyone know that's going to be my 50th birthday. So I am.
We'll keep
we will
dogs
do
off the agenda.
Okay. that's-
No.
That will take a long time to
But
talk about.
I'll talk to you, and
You bet.
I'm planning to, fund something that we'll do here to kind of celebrate a little bit.
That would be great.
Sorry, I'll have to miss it. I'll be on vacation.
What's that? Liquid? Oh, well, there you go. I hadn't even thought of that.
Wait,
All right. Yes.
Sorry. I wanted to, if it's okay, to back up a little bit and to the millions of viewers to say go to mymonona.com and fill out the Dogs and Parks survey. Jake provided the board a little bit of an update, and there's about, I don't know if we were all copied on that, but about 570 people already have filled out the survey, which I think is great. So I know as I'm walking my dog, I have little printouts that I hand other dog walkers to fill out the survey. So
And the
it's a popular thing.
transportation one too, don't forget that survey
Yes.
too, if you have not filled that out, so.
Yeah, the active.
Oh yeah, the active transportation.
We're at
yeah,
110 for that total, so please fill
Perfect.
that out if you have not.
Is that being promoted on the city website? And
I've done,
Initially, it was
It was.
kind of talking
yeah.
individual people, right? But as
yeah, he'll have that at some of the upcoming festivals, some more of those, and yeah, there were little cards they sent out, and I believe it's still on the homepage. I've done it on the radio a few times, so.
it'd be good if he would post it on Facebook or something, and then we could share it. You know, that's what Jake usually does, and then if each of us who's on Facebook shares it.
He does have it on the Sustainability's Facebook page,
Yeah,
or Green Monona. I think there might be both of those, but he does have it on one of those. But
I'll see if
we have our
there's some
meeting
other
and we
avenues.
can mention it to them again.
And I believe the hearing on the dog parks, or the dogs and parks proposals and ideas is on August 9th. I believe.
Yeah, either 8th or 9th. Yeah, 8th is the Monday, and then the 9th
right.
we're having our meeting to talk about it and
Oh, right.
implement
That's correct. I'm
possibly.
sorry. Yes. So the hearing is on the 8th.
Yep.
So,
Right here, I believe.
Except for Plan Commission will be here.
Oh, so we're over there. All right.
okay.
So we'll just defer to Sunny.
Very good. Tie your dogs up out in front of the library.
Yeah.
Be careful, they can drag away those bike stands.
Oh, goodness,
I've seen them
okay.
do that at libraries before.
All right. Is there anything else that needs to be reported prior to appointments tonight? So we do have some appointments to the Public Works Committee effective immediately through May 2018. We have Tom Stolper, Tim Torino, Leslie Bussey, Steve Franklin, and William Podell. To the Community Media Committee, we have Lindsay Wood Davis, effective immediately through May 2018. Dan Olson, of the Monona Grove School District member, through May 17. Greg Little, effective immediately through May 2019. And Valerie Hine Hamstra, effective immediately through May 2019. And to the Public Safety Commission, Bart Gary, effective immediately through May 2019. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The appointments are confirmed. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.